Yeah, how you like that? Now you're dead, idiot. Busy? No, I was just playing Nintendogs. What do you want?
Dude, look what I found!
Oh, dude, no way, it's our old high school yearbook. Bring that over here. Dude, look at all these photos. Oh, your eyebrows look so dumb. My eyebrows look exactly the same. Yeah, they do. Oh, but you got so many signatures here, man. Look at all that. Actually, that's just my old kill list. Why would you want to kill all these people? Well, I mean, some of them did annoying things. Some of them said annoying things. You know, some of them made that annoying noise when they breathe. Exhaling? That's the one. Dude, why would you want to do that? Well, I mean, what if someone walked up to you and just said,
"Who still plays video games after middle school? Like, grow up already."
I would murder them with the power of God and anime.
Nice. Where'd you get the sword?
I have a guy.
Yo, dude, is that my name? Well, maybe if you didn't breathe so much.
I'm sorry!
Okay, get out of here. Your cameo's over.
Okay.
Hello Internet, it is me, the man. Now many folks never thought the day would actually come, but earlier this week, Yandere Dev finally released the official demo for Yandere Simulator, free to download and complete with the game's first rival, Osana. Now the demo includes the first fully playable week of the game, with most of the game's features enabled, and a multitude of different ways for the player to go about eliminating Osana. So, was the demo worth the 5+ years of waiting, and more importantly, is it any good? Well, I have put about 10 hours in the demo at this point, and even though honestly there's still a lot I haven't even experienced yet, I do feel like I've seen enough that I have a pretty good overall feel for what the demo's like, and I think I'm ready to start answering that question. So, let's take a look at the long-awaited official Yandere Simulator demo. So right off the bat, I had this kind of weird glitch where the render distance was automatically set to 0 meters, so the game didn't actually render the real-time 3D environment of the title screen, and I ended up with all the titles artifacting really badly. It was a mess. But once I got into the settings and was able to change that, everything worked out pretty well, and I gotta say, the 3D title screen actually looks really nice. Alright, so for anyone who's completely unfamiliar with the gameplay of Yandere Simulator, it's basically a Hitman-esque stealth assassin game set in a Japanese high school. You play as a high school girl who has an obsessive crush on her senpai, and you must kill or in other ways eliminate any romantic rivals that also have a crush on him. Every week there's a new rival for you to go up against, and you have the 5 school days of the week in order to deal with them. Now throughout this review I'm probably going to make a lot of comparisons to the Hitman franchise, and that is partially because it is my favorite stealth assassin series. It's the one that got me into the genre to begin with, and it is the title that I do hold all of their third-person stealth assassin games up to. But also, Yandere's dev himself has constantly compared Yandere Simulator to Hitman, so I feel like it is a fairly safe comparison to make at this point, and I will be using it throughout the video. Now, as I've said multiple times in the past, the most important part of a stealth game is, of course, the stealth mechanics themselves, and ironically I actually don't have that much to say about Yandere Simulator's stealth mechanics. At this point, they've remained fairly consistent over the last few years of development, and are fairly well polished, if not slightly simplistic. You can crouch and go prone to remain undetected and sneak around, and generally I find it just works. I was able to sneak past everyone I was really trying to, and most importantly, I never felt like I was unfairly detected when I should not have been, because that's a very common problem I found in a lot of indie and low-budget Hitman-style stealth games, and it's incredibly frustrating and can ruin an otherwise enjoyable play session. You can giggle to distract an NPC and draw their attention to a specific location, which is a really nice feature to have. I kind of feel like any stealth game that doesn't have the option to whistle or throw an object to make an NPC go investigate is just way harder than it needs to be. You also have Yandere Vision, which is very similar to the instinct mechanics in the modern Hitman games. It'll highlight useful objects in the immediate environment and tell you what nearby NPCs are either friendly or alerted to suspicious activity. I found that the mechanic generally worked. It was useful in some situations, but like the Hitman instinct, I didn't really have to rely on it as a crutch. So I felt it was pretty balanced. Now, one thing I did find super irritating was the fact that every time you pass a student council rep, you get an alert. Now, I understand the game explains that the student council representatives are already on to you and that they know you're a dangerous, suspicious character, but really, when I'm just walking past them, having the alert go off is just completely unnecessary. Now, when it comes to actually eliminating your rival, the game doesn't cut any corners on giving you a plethora of different methods to use. Seriously, there's like 24 of these things. They're called schemes, and to quote Yandere Dev himself, they basically function as the opportunity system from the modern 2 Hitman games. You can purchase these schemes from InfoChan, the school's information broker, because every high school has one of those. The character basically acts as your sassy handler / sassy tech support. You can also buy in-game items from InfoChan, like poison or a clean uniform, as well as, surprisingly, information on any student that you've taken a photo of. Just a side note, this game does let you take photos of whatever you want, and you can do it in selfie mode, and that's a pretty cool little detail. Now, you can purchase these services using info points, which can be obtained one of 2 ways. Either taking panty shots of other girls at the school, which is gross, and I really hate that feature, it's probably my least favorite part of the game, or by placing audio bugs around the school in areas that are likely to have people stand and gossip. Now, while each panty shot is only worth a few points depending on how popular the girl is, which is again a really gross system, each bug you plant is worth a flat 10 points. Now, as happy as I am that you can play the entire game without taking any panty shots, I will say that the ease in which you can generate points using the bugs, considering that there's 10 locations you can place bugs for 100 points, and you can place the bugs in the same locations every day, meaning you can get 100 points every day in a 5-day week, it really trivializes the act of taking panty shots, which is quite difficult and has a severe penalty to your reputation if you get caught. I don't really understand why you would bother. So as a matter of a balancing issue, either panty shots should be worth way more, or planting bugs should only be worth like 5 points, or maybe you can only place 1 bug in each of the 10 spots once a week. I don't really know. I would perfectly be fine if the panty shot mechanic was just completely removed and that we only had the bug mechanic, but I'm also totally open for players' choice on how they want to play the game. Now, to get back to the methods of elimination, many of the methods are significantly easier to pull off than others. I don't inherently think this is a problem or imbalanced, however, as in the Hitman games, many of the opportunities are far more complex and difficult to pull off than some of the more simple ones. I think that this really just comes down to how do you want to play? Do you want to play diplomatically through subterfuge, or do you just want to kill your rival? It's up to you. Now, personally, I like to play my stealth games as much of a pacifist as possible. I played both Dishonored and Deus Ex without ever killing anyone, and in Hitman, I always get the silent assassin. I'm fairly good at avoiding collateral damage, so of course, in Yandere Simulator, I tried as many of the non-lethal methods as I could. The matchmaking method was the first one I tried. This was a mistake, as it is probably the most difficult, tedious, and time-consuming method in the game. The fact that to pull it off successfully, you basically have to play perfectly from Monday morning onward every single day of the week is incredibly time-consuming. It took me about 2 hours to play it all the way through, and that was because I screwed up the first time because I didn't know what I was doing. You basically have to know everything to do before you even start the week if you want to have any chance of pulling the matchmaking off. That being said, I quite enjoyed it. That is how I would probably choose to play the entire game. It's probably the most satisfying route I ever played. Unfortunately, the passive runs in the demo just don't work. You don't get the ending when you play a pacifist run. I did both the friendship run and the matchmaking run, and neither time did I get the correct ending. The friendship run just moved on to the next day as if I hadn't done anything, which was bizarre. And even more bizarre, the matchmaking cutscene at the end was completely broken with the new suitor just not appearing, and then it crashed the game twice. When I loaded back up, the save just didn't work, and when I started the Friday over again, my rival was already match-made with the new suitor, and they acted as if they would on the following Monday. And then the game crashed again. I just could not get the true ending doing it. So even though I strongly believe that everyone deserves a happy ending, I loaded a slightly older save and bashed Osana's face in with a fire extinguisher. Which was neither challenging or satisfying, as Raibaru was stuck on a door frame, which I will get to in a minute. But that did trigger the whole ending sequence with the multiple final cutscenes and the credits, which I gotta say, the ending of the demo does exactly what a good demo ending should do. It makes me want to play the full game. I was hyped after watching that ending cutscene sequence. Alright, so back to the door frame issue. This demo is pretty janky. I'm not even going to try to lie to you. As much as I enjoy playing it, it's got a lot of problems, and probably the biggest and most noticeable one is the NPC pathfinding. Now, most of the random class-made NPCs are pretty good. They'll avoid obstacles generally, but Osana and Raibaru are awful. Osana was constantly getting stuck on door frames, other NPCs, her own feet. The fountain was the worst one. She would spend about half an hour every day caught in an endless loop of walking into the fountain. Raibaru was even worse. Raibaru probably spent about half the game stuck on a door frame running in place, desperately trying to get to the side of her best friend, to no avail because she was too stupid to move, 2 feet to the left. Honestly, this was actually pretty game-breaking. This was probably, other than the crashing at the end of the Pacifist routes, this was probably the most game-breaking bug I encountered, as the fact that Raibaru was half the time just not present to defend Osana meant that Osana was by herself way more than she was supposed to be, which made her way more vulnerable to me killing her, hence the fire extinguisher to the face. These pathfinding errors also led to scheduled events either being missed or done later. I actually had Osana's 7:30 a.m. phone call be postponed by 6 minutes because she got stuck on a tree. Now, speaking of Raibaru, I did not hate Raibaru as much as I thought I would. She really is not the indestructible, omnipresent bodyguard I was quite concerned that she would be. In fact, I almost never had to deal with her. When you go the pacifist route, she really isn't that much of a problem, and even when you go the violent route, if she's not stuck on a door frame somewhere, there are several legitimate ways to either distract her or permanently kill her. You can get rid of Raibaru if you want. So overall, I was pretty happy. She really does kind of serve the same role as a hitman bodyguard, and that's okay. Now, I will say that having basically everything important regarding your rival take place on the morning of the first Monday is fairly unforgiving. You really do have to play that one Monday just following Osana around, gathering as much information as possible. Otherwise, you'll be at a huge disadvantage when it comes to what schemes you can use against her. I do think it would be nice to have some sort of tutorial, though, maybe taking place on the last Friday before the first week of classes. I know Yandere Dev suggested that maybe the coconut character would ask the player to help her rehearse a scene for the school play, in which the player would be taught how to kill and use items and that kind of thing. That would be really handy because as it stands now, you're just kind of thrown into that first Monday and expected to know what to do, and I'm all for replaying the same level over and over again, learning from your mistakes and mastering it, but at least let me know what I'm working with from the beginning. Now, this does bring me to how rigid and experienced Yandere Simulator is. The game is very heavily scripted and the events are set in stone. What happens on a Tuesday will always happen on a Tuesday, unless of course you've done something on a Monday to manipulate the events of a Tuesday. This does make the game incredibly predictable, and once you've played it a few times, you will know everything that is going to happen. This does, however, mean that you can master the game. And I am completely okay with this. I don't really find this rigidness a problem. Every time you load up a map in Hitman, the same things are going to happen. NPCs are going to act out events, patrol patterns will be patrolled, set pieces will be set up, and opportunities for you to kill your targets will be presented. Honestly, this is how I like my stealth assassin games. I like to be able to memorize patrol patterns, get really good at the maps, and be able to do them as fast and efficiently as possible. Or just mess around. So personally, I don't really see that as a problem, although I can understand why some people would say this makes the game incredibly repetitive and therefore boring, and would be more attracted to a proposed love letter style of gameplay where NPC movements and activities are randomized. That's not the kind of game I would be as interested in, but this is really up to personal taste. So besides those glaring issues, there were also some problems with some of the game's new graphical options. Bloom doesn't really work. It looks nice in some very specific situations, like early morning in the courtyard outside school, but it can also make the interior hallways just blinding God ray-filled messes, where it just kind of looks like you're standing on a cloud, so I ended up turning it off most of the time. Depth of field, however, just doesn't work at all. It can make the objects in the distance look a lot nicer, especially since in the distance you can set how far you want it. I had it for 50, which I think was a pretty good amount. It turns off animation, so you end up with just NPCs gliding around in the background. So having depth of field can help hide that and some more low poly models. But unfortunately, it also blurs everything in the foreground, which makes using your computer at night impossible. so I unfortunately had to turn that off. But honestly, what was even more infuriating than not having some of the graphical options work well was the fact that the game doesn't remember your graphical setting choices. So not only do I have to re-tick off every box every time I start the game up again, but even after every time I reload an old save. Seriously, every time I screw up and have to go back a save file, I shouldn't have to tick Bloom off again. That is just something that should work and is just completely inexcusable that it doesn't. This made me legitimately mad several times. Speaking of saving and loading the game, the demo actually offers a fairly robust save experience, which I was quite impressed by. You have 3 files to play under from the title screen, and in each file, you have 10 random saves you can make and save over. This is on par, if not better, than the modern Hitman games, and a fantastic way to encourage trial and error gameplay. Now, unfortunately, the saving feature is not perfect, and it does have quite a lot of problems, which the game does freely admit every time you open the save or load menu. I found overall, the save feature did work pretty consistently, and most of the time I didn't have a problem with it. The one thing I really noticed is it wasn't good at remembering what step you were on in a scheme. I would do several steps in a scheme, screw up, load a old save file, and it would still be telling me to do the later step in the scheme that I hadn't even gotten to yet. I also had a problem where loading the save would remember the student placement, the time of day, and what items I had, but it wouldn't remember what mission objectives were available to me. And I wasn't able to duplicate certain events and instead had to start the day completely over. But overall, a very good start to a save system, and if it's improved and finished, this will be fantastic. As a location, the school, which most of the gameplay takes place within, is a fairly detailed, expansive, and intricate environment, with lots of props, NPCs, and locations to interact with, including several utility and club rooms. And one of these rooms is a library, and you know what that means. Oh yeah! Quiet library girl! Roll the clip!
Perfection.
The demo has also added a feature to freely venture to a street in the town, which is actually pretty nice. I have specifically been waiting for this feature to be implemented, and it's everything I really expected it to be. It looks like what was shown to us in Yandere Dev's videos. You can go there to either buy in-game items or buffs, or to work at the maid cafe to make money in order to buy said items. And with all these specialty stores that have been added, he's also added shop clerk waifus! So that's pretty cool. I actually quite like that each shop has its own characteristics. But most excitedly, in this dark little alley here, you can see the Yakuza. So we now have a confirmation that they will be in the game in some capacity, which I am super excited for. Please let me sell people's organs to you. There are a ton of little details and extras featured in this demo, from minigames to in-game lore to references to all kinds of anime and video games. The game is packed, and I love it. It really does make the game feel more alive. Just as an example, you can literally have an ethical debate with someone on an in-game Discord server who has an anime profile picture. It's just like real life, guys. Also, audio logs have been added, so now Yandere Simulator is like Dead Space, but with more anime girls. And interestingly, these audio tapes added a really cool backstory with InfoChan's dad. I don't really want to get into it because I want you to experience it for yourself, but I was kind of captivated, honestly. I really truly enjoy all the little details and lore and background stuff that have been added. Overall, the voice acting is pretty good. There are still a lot of lines that lack voice acting, and there are some lines that do leave quite a lot to be desired. But overall, I gotta say, the woman doing the voice acting for Osana is really good. I really like it, especially this line.
What's this?
It's a bento, stupid.
I don't know what it is, but I just love that one. I can't hear it enough. The game does a really good job of making you just feel awful. You are a terrible person in this game. The characters are so likable. I mean, normally I hate tsunderes. I generally don't go for them in anime, but Osana is actually a really likable, empathetical character, and you have to murder her, and that is awful, and that is great. You are playing a monster, and that is how you should feel, and I am quite happy with how the game handles it. Honestly, I think I only have one actual gameplay mechanic complaint about the game, and that's the fact that you can't dump bodies off of ledges. Now, the fact that you can upgrade your athletic skill and carry bodies instead of dragging them is very handy, but the fact that one of the elimination methods is pushing Osana off the roof and making it look like a suicide makes it kind of weird that you can't just dump her lifeless body off the edge, and the fact that the game forces me to carry her body down the stairs is infuriating, unrealistic, and inexcusable. So in the end, what is my verdict on the official Yandere Simulator demo? Well, I really like it, and I had a ton of fun playing it, and I'm looking forward to playing it even more, but I'm not going to stand here and let my own personal bias get in the way of telling you that there's a lot of jank here, and there's a lot of features that are just not complete and in a borderline unplayable state. The demo itself is completely playable, and it is quite possible, depending on what route you take, you will be able to go from beginning to end without really facing any problems. But if this is a true vertical slice representation of what the final game is going to be, there's a lot of work that has to go into some basic things. In the end, a stealth assassin game, besides the stealth mechanics themselves, the second most important thing is the targets. If the targets aren't good, and killing them doesn't feel fun, challenging, and rewarding, the game can only be so good. I was totally blown away by the amount of detail present in Yandere Simulator. There were a bunch of things that I just would never have expected to be there, and they were, and it was delightful, and I loved it. But it came down to how fun was it to kill or passively neutralize Osana, and that's where I had most of my problems, unfortunately. Now don't get me wrong, I still think the demo is a huge step forward to the game, and I am so happy that I can finally play a fully playable week of Yandere Simulator. I no longer have to turn on the pre-alpha build and get that obnoxious, taunting, flashing screen that says, "This is not a demo, there is no way to win." Now there's a way to win, and that is fantastic. Now personally, I so deeply hope that the development of the game will continue at a constant and lucrative pace, and at some point in the next couple years, we will actually get a complete Yandere Simulator. That would be fantastic. I would be so happy with that. That being said, I am also a realist, and I understand that that very likely may never happen. Yandere Dev has specifically said if the crowdfunding campaign he's hosting is not successful, then several features will not be realized, and the development of the game will be much slower than it could be. But heck, even if this is it, and we never get anything else for Yandere Simulator, I've already had hours of fun playing the demo, and there's tons of methods I haven't even explored yet. I am looking forward to continuing to play the demo, and in the end, there's a bunch of games that I've paid money for that I haven't had this much fun playing, so take that for what it's worth. Download the demo for yourself and play it. Even if you don't back the game, don't care, don't like Yandere Dev, it's free. You don't have to support him, just try it. You might have problems, you might have a blast. I sure enjoyed it, and I am really hopeful for what the future might hold. But that's about all I have to say for the Yandere Simulator demo. This was a good week. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again on whatever I decide to talk about next real soon. Goodbye!
Oh, that's so many signatures, man. You got, Jessica. I did not like Jessica.
That's why she's on the kill list.
The kill list? The kill list? Dude! That explains why they're not returning my emails!